Have you ever been knocked down and found it hard to get up? Have you ever been knocked down and bounced back to come back even stronger? Hi, I'm Gaurav Bhagat and you can call me GB. And welcome to the Smashed Bashed Yet Not Dashed podcast. A fortnightly podcast where I speak about persistence, perseverance, and overcoming the odds to come out ahead. Welcome to the Smashed, Bashed, Yet Not Dashed podcast. My guest today is an exceptional entrepreneur, someone who probably didn't have the necessary contacts, connects, or money when starting out in the journey as an entrepreneur. However, several years later, is today considered to be one of India's youngest self-made billionaires. Nikhil Kamath, welcome to the Smashed, Bashed, Yet Not Dashed podcast.
Hi, thank you for having me. Thank you, Gaurav.
Nikhil, it truly is, an honor to have you here. And I know you have a lot of demands on your time, and you're speaking on some of the biggest stages and forums and shows in the world right now. And myself and my audience truly consider it a privilege to have you here. That said, okay, now to get things, started, why don't you share for our listeners, if someone walked up to you in a business forum and didn't really know who you were, how would you introduce yourself for the first time?
Well, sure. So I've always had an interest in finance. Started working early, started at about 15, 16, started full-time work at about 17, started trading, then managing money for friends and family, broking. And then along over the years, we've done everything which is in the fintech space, but not banking. So we're an NBFC, we're a lender, we run a fintech incubator, we have a venture capital arm focused on fintech. But I would say somebody who's been in the fintech industry for a long time now, I would say trading for as much as 17 years of my life. Great. And yeah, it's a great industry. It never ceases to surprise in a way, and it's constantly evolving. So good times.
Of course, I agree 100%. And while Nikhil, you've had some amazing successes in life, I'd like to take you back to a time perhaps when you had one of your very own smashed, bashed moments. You were 14, probably 15, and school really wasn't of interest to you, and you had to drop out, right? So can we take a journey back to that time, and perhaps you could tell our listeners something like what it was like at that time when this really happened for the 14 or the 15-year-old Nikhil?
Well, these stories get exaggerated with time. Every person who tells them. In all fairness, it was actually quite simple. I don't think I was the best student. I wasn't great at academics. I would say, a decent to a moderately good student. And chess happened early in life and it continued up until the age of 17. So that was one good excuse to stop studying. But I think the main reason here was I think the drive to become financially independent kind of started earlier than usual. And the motivation very much at that time was financial independence. And I didn't see myself being very competitive in the traditional path that many of my peers or my classmates of the time were choosing for themselves.
Agreed. Yeah, thank you for sharing. And financial independence, I guess, is one of the things that you mentioned. So post this, you, of course, make your way to working the phones at a call center before you discovered what was, your true passion, the world of trading. And just curious, what brought you to the markets? Because if I go back to my case, I mean, I was, of course, also attracted to the markets pre-Harshad Mehta days. I was around the same age as you were. And for me, it was I wouldn't get to see my dad much. So for us, it was about taking a walk after dinner to go down to the magazine wala and picking up a copy of Dalal Street magazine, Dalal Street Journal, or Flash News as they were called. And that was pretty much how my journey in the market started as a 14 or a 15-year-old. Who were some of your early influencers? I presume your brother, yes, but early influencers who got both you and your brother interested or started in the markets as well.
Well, I think it was just the circle of people, that we kind of hung out with back then. Also, I don't think it was an external influence, but the fact that online trading in a way got democratized in early 2000s.
Right.
Up until then, you had these traditional brokers, you had to call them. The entry barrier was quite high. You
True.
needed to have a certain amount of money.
True that.
Back then, I think Share Khan, ICICI Direct, these guys came about and created an ecosystem where even with a little bit of money, you could go online, buy, sell, and kind of like try or attempt trading. I think that gave us the impetus when this change was happening in the ecosystem.
Right.
But outside of that, I think for me personally, uh, the fact that you don't so when you're a 17-year-old boy and you're working in a call center, you have to ask yourself, how many things can you do in life to make money which do not require a a large amount of corpus to start a business, or b educational qualification which will make someone hire you for a reasonable wage.
True that.
So when you kind of filter out most of the opportunities that do exist, I think equity markets is one of the few places where you don't have to start with very much. You can start with a keen interest and very little capital, and given time, patience, and experience, the opportunities to scale that capital are there.
Agreed. Agree with you 100%. And yeah, interesting viewpoint on that as well. In your early days as a trader, did you ever end up blowing your trading account? Because I know a lot of people end up doing that. So did that happen for you as well?
It did. So I would not call myself the kind of trader, who has just like sat on a computer and always made money. No,
Right.
not at all. There have been many cases, especially in the early years, where because by virtue of having a smaller pool of capital, you have to lever so many times, right, to make some kind of returns on the money you've invested. So leverage kind of made me burn out many times, especially in the first, I think, 2 years that I was trading between 17 to 19. But these experiences of burning out kind of teach you the importance of diversifying, having a stop loss, not using too much leverage, because it has uh, when it works it looks great, but more often than not it does not. The biggest problem with leverage is when you're trading on borrowed money in a way, and if you have 10,000 rupees in your account and you're buying equity worth 2 lakh, uh, the ability to remain rational and objective go away very quickly because you're so easily swayed by emotion. So the first couple of years, yes, burned out a few times, but hopefully learned something from that.
Of course, yes. And which is why we're having this conversation today. So valuable share. So tell me, in your late teens, early 20s, when you were, I'm sure you were living, breathing the stock market. Did you ever chase away friends or girlfriends because it was always about the stock market and conversations were always around that? Did that ever happen in your case?
No, it did not. I think I don't think that ever happened. I
Yeah.
think stock markets are open for a few hours a day, right? Like 7 or 8 hours, and they shut at 3:30. Sure, you work on other things beyond 3:30, but your mind is only fixated upon the stock markets for the duration that they're open. I think it's one of the few professions where, unlike 9 out of 10 jobs, each day you go into work, something new happens and you can't predict it. So it's not very repetitive at all. So it's a fairly exhilarating industry to work in. I think, especially for youngsters today, people who are contemplating doing roles in things around stock markets, there are plenty of interesting opportunities out there.
Yeah, I love that advice because one would think that you were always on, and once the Indian markets would close, you probably following global cues or the SGX. So great. I mean, good to hear that you were actually able to switch off, and I think that's something that people really value because I know some people who are just so completely immersed in it. So obviously, we've had this new generation of stock market enthusiasts. I'm not even calling them traders right now. Let's just say stock market enthusiasts, who've come up, youngsters, in our organizations across the country. In fact, what is your advice to the new generation of, stock market enthusiasts and the youngsters who are now coming in for the first time?
Well, I think it's a good thing. Firstly, Gaurav, I think the scale and the proportion is minuscule, right? Like we have 130, 40, I don't know how many crore people in this country, the number of people who have direct or indirect exposure to stock markets today is probably, in a true sense, only about 1.5% of that. So even though we might have grown by 20%, 30, 40%, it is on that base.
Agreed.
That 1.5% in India is probably 50, 60% in some developed economies.
Very true.
The potential to grow is significant. But most importantly, outside of, the fact that there is COVID and people have time, and it's, the flavor of the season to invest in equity markets and all of that, I think we have, as an economy, arrived at this place where if you have X amount of savings, say you earn 1 lakh a month and you saved 40, 50,000 rupees.
Right.
If you want to beat inflation and have it in a liquid, reasonably transparent investment, there aren't many options outside of equity markets today.
So true.
In a way, you're buying the growth story of India. Real estate, I think, personally, is grossly overvalued and has not really returned anything over the last decade or two. And fixed income is giving nothing. Gold also over the long term does not really beat inflation. Right. So equity markets, you would assume, is the place for people to come in. So I think this number from 1.5% will go up to 5, 10, 15% over the following years.
100%, and I'm sure Zerodha will be at the forefront in converting this, as you have over the course of the last few months. So of course, admirable. So of course, we've covered newbies and people who are coming into the market for the first time. Your advice to even old timers, I mean, people like myself who sometimes get carried away with the new dashboards, the gamification. I mean, we're old school guys, right? Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden we come into where it's almost sometimes like a video game, and we end up, well, just let's say making some stupid trades and things, and the only time you realize is either the end of day report or when you open Zerodha the next day and you see the bright red box and it says, oops, that's what happened to me after 15 days of grain, etc. So your advice to even old timers, people who've been there, what would your advice be in that case?
Well, in life we often look behind to kind of figure out what is right and what is not right, and for advice. I think with equity markets, they're always forward looking. So the better person to take advice might not be a 60-year-old veteran, but a 15-year-old kid, and watching what he is interested in, because that will give you a better forecasting ability into the future.
Right.
But it is a profession which rewards discipline exponentially. Yeah. I think for anybody, people who have been around for a long time, new people, anybody, to follow the inherent rules that they set for themselves. And my rules are my rules and your rules are yours. Mm-hmm, but whatever rules they do set for themselves, it could be something as simple as, not levering and diversifying. If they can follow those rules and not sway emotionally, I think there are plenty of opportunities to make money out there.
Very valuable advice again. Yes. And I think everyone needs to set their own rules. You need to find, how the game plays out for yourself and then set your own boundaries. Awesome. I love that. So Zerodha as a platform is phenomenal, right? I mean, I only moved to Zerodha in January of 21 actually. And we were always, with HDFC, and one day HDFC guys are calling my dad and myself and they're like, where are you? We don't see you doing anything. And I said, we moved to Zerodha. And they're like, okay, we'll match the rates. And I'm like, it's not about the rates. It's just about, the experience and how it makes you feel. And Kite as a platform is just so great. So what were you guys thinking about when you created, Kite? I mean, what was the core team thinking about? What was the thought process in your head that led to the creation of what we have now?
Yeah, so the credit for Kite goes to this guy who is our CTO. His name is Kailash, who's incredibly brilliant. But I think the general point from where we started is traditional trading platforms had 500 different options. And after having used them for many years, one came to the realization that 495 out of 500 options, nobody has ever clicked ever. So then why have it?
Sure.
So we started from there. We removed what was not relevant while retaining anything that can be useful in all scenarios. And just making the experience a bit more seamless and simple. And I think decluttering in a way helped us rather than, adding new things which did not exist.
I love that. Yep. Simplify and just, yep, make it accessible and easy. Awesome. So great to hear. So do you see Zerodha at some point heading to other countries and replicating the success that you've had in the Indian markets? Do you see yourself doing that at some point as well?
I mean, we'd love to see the biggest market, the mother of them all is America, right? But see, compliance wise, we both are very different. India, the regulators are in fact, a lot more advanced and the ecosystem is way more compliant. We'd love to be in America, but at this point in time, I think we're all just inundated with so much, like every single one of us, that we don't really have the bandwidth, and there's no point making a half-hearted attempt at this.
Oh yeah, 100%. No point in making a half-hearted attempt. So maybe a simpler extension would it be perhaps that perhaps you could start offering global equity on your platform, so people can start buying Apple and Facebook and all of that on Zerodha. That would be awesome.
Yeah, we're planning to do that. I think the Gift City platform, Prime Minister Modi's pet project, Gift City in Gujarat, has made it a little easier and a lot more feasible for us to be able to provide that. We're working with them.
Lovely.
Hopefully, we can work out something.
Awesome. And that'll be a game changer, addition to your armory and portfolio. So your advice to those, that suffer from FOMO, especially when they feel, hey, the market ran up from 7,000 to 14,000 as far as the Nifty goes, or, Bitcoin today, everyone wants to have a conversation on Bitcoin. I'm like, I have no idea around Bitcoin, but they're like, Arey yaar, gaadi nikal gayi, or the ship has sailed, and, what do we do? And, we missed the bus. What's your advice to those people who have this, fear of, or they suffer from FOMO, let's just say?
Well, I think that's all of us, right? Like everybody has missed some bus.
True that.
Well, the idea is to say, that the bus is eventually just going around in circles. Yep. Don't run after it, but just wait for it to come back around. And, at some point, if it's a reasonable investment, you will have that opportunity. So if you're patient enough in the market, Gaurav, every 5 years, every 10 years, there will be something that goes really wrong and you'll have that 20, 30, 40% correction when you can enter the bus again. So never chase it.
100%. And I think a big message for, everyone who, especially the Instagram generation, where it's about, like quick and, fast results, patience and, perseverance. And of course, just have discipline. I think that's something you've stressed on, multiple times today. So your the platform like Zerodha as a platform and Kite as a platform, is doing amazing things for bringing in the retail investor into the markets. I mean, like you mentioned, it was prohibitive, till a few years ago. And of course, you've had a great, success in actually doing that. And my point being this, that do you see retail investors playing a bigger role in India in due course in actually moving the markets in a particular direction? I mean, today, if I look at StockEdge, it says, FII figures were this and, DII figures were this. I mean, no one really talks about the retail investor. So do you think there's only a matter of time before even the retail investor starts moving things in a bigger way?
I hope that's the case. Like at the end of the day, if our country does well, the shareholders to that growth and the partakers in the success, the end point of that should be the people of our country. It shouldn't be this foreign institution or this big private equity fund, whatever. Right? It should be the people of India who partake in that growth and kind of benefit from having been on that journey. So I hope it happens. The trend seems to be upward looking. I think more people are coming into the equity market on the retail side.
Right.
And hopefully that continues.
Awesome. Yeah, let's hope for that. So sometimes, we are kind of a little more self-reliant, let's just say, but I love that. So you have a great temperament. I mean, I only, came across you and your profile a few weeks ago, and, I see your temperament is very calm, very, very collected. You're good at keeping your cool, student of psychology, childhood chess prodigy. Did you ever consider becoming a championship poker player? Because you have all the skills that a poker player would actually need to be great at the game.
I do play poker with my office colleagues once in a while.
Mm-hmm.
No, never. I think I've never considered it. I think playing at a casino is flawed because the rake is too high. I would never. But playing with people in a closed circuit I think stock markets are a bigger rush and a bigger pond, I don't think poker, the same amount of time spent on poker versus stock market, probably the markets will yield more.
Of course, of course. Yeah, I want to get into your head on that one because, yeah, like I said, you have all the characteristics of a great poker player. So I thought, let me just throw that question in there as well. So coming back to the teen version, of you, and you left out school, you dropped out of school, and you probably had a lot of friends who wanted to kind of, not who were your friends, kind of moved away, or parents of your friends said, "Nahi, yaar, Nikhil ke saath hang out nahi karna," and all of that. Did that really happen at some point where you were being judged by your choices that you took as a 15-year-old?
I'm sure it happened. I don't think I paid much attention to it because I was genuinely busy, but
Yeah.
I'm sure it did. I come from a typical South Indian Brahmin middle class family where education is everything.
Sure that.
So people probably critiqued my parents more than they did me.
Yeah.
Sometimes things work out in life, Gaurav. It normally isn't because of how special you are.
Yeah.
We've been extremely lucky to have been in the right place at the right time, doing the right thing. There are probably, 10,000 smarter people, more intelligent people, hardworking people.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. So wouldn't recommend the same path, the same journey to anybody. And not even saying that the path and the journey, the outcome that it has reached to now, I wouldn't like to call it outcome because I'm thinking I'm young and there's plenty to do.
Sure that.
But
Sure that.
yeah, there's no right or wrong, but I don't think you should pay too much heed to all of this. It's just luck. You were there, right time, you had a decent product and it worked.
Yeah. Agreed. No, luck plays such a factor, and it's the same that I hear from so many successful people, around not only India but the whole world. It's luck is playing such an important aspect, and sometimes I almost say like life and poker and even business for that matter. I mean, it's a combination of skill, psychology, and luck, right? And they probably have a certain percentage and a certain role to play there. And yeah, luck's probably as high as maybe 40%. I don't know, between skill, psychology, and luck. So thank you for sharing on that one and the importance of luck. So last few questions. I know you're very, very pressed on time as well. And I want to talk about True Beacon. And True Beacon is, I mean, a fantastic platform. I mean, an asset management company that charges no fee. There are no entry loads, no exit loads, and you make money when the client makes money, right? So two questions, like, first of all, that's wow. And two questions, how does one get in? Like, if I want to get in, how does that really happen? And the second question is, you probably have like a line of people lined up to get in, right? So how's it going at True Beacon?
Well, True Beacon's doing well. It has been 2 years, almost 2 years now. The intention here was when I personally was allocating money to, wealth managers, private banks,
Right.
I found the environment very inefficient. You pay the private bank 1-2%. He recommends you to a fund manager, then you pay that guy 1% to set up the fund, then you pay him 2% a year, then you can't take out your money when you want. So we decided let's change all of that and make it transparent. By virtue of that, it became maybe 10 times as cheap as any other fund manager is today.
Right.
And then we decided let's keep the clientele, because we're a category 3 AIF. We by mandate cater to ultra HNIs across the world.
Right.
We said we'll go a step further and be really selective about the kind of money we take in. So anybody who is in a gray area in any sphere of his life, we try and shy away from. But because we've been so selective about the clients we have on the platform, I think we are on the verge of creating this super community of influential promoters of corporations, billionaires from across the world.
Right.
We have about 250 of them now. But I think this network in itself will become something so powerful, wherein, say, you're for example, say you're a cement maker on the platform, and there is another real estate company which is based in Singapore. You guys had never thought of doing trade. We will connect and make these connections on the platform.
Fantastic.
So it's doing incredibly well. Very, very excited for True Beacon. And I think the next 2 years will be defining for True Beacon in a way.
I love that. So what you're saying is that it also becomes a networking opportunity to do global business and more, apart from giving them a lot of good
Yeah,
returns on their money. Wow. I
yeah.
mean, wow. Like if that isn't disruptive, then I don't know what is. So well done. Concluding a few questions. So you guys are completely, founder owned, bootstrapped. You never went down the private equity route, and I get that. I get that as well because it perhaps takes away, from your culture and your value. But do you see yourself going public at some point so that the traders or the investors or the people who use the Zerodha platform actually get a chance to buy and own some of your stock as well?
Yeah, I mean, we'd love for our users, our clients, to be shareholders in the company. We would have zero interest in, like a foreign institution coming, giving us a lot of money and buying a 10% stake.
Right.
But in return, if our very own users can become shareholders, is exciting because, it kind of is a way of paying back the people who have helped us grow in many ways.
So true.
The regulation around listing in IPOs in India is quite prohibitive,
Right.
especially the amount of accounting fees and book building fees, lead managing fees, and all of that.
Right.
If in the future there is an efficient means of doing this, where we're not wasting 1 year of time, time taken away from building a better product onto that,
True
we'll
that.
definitely contemplate.
True that. Yeah, wow. Look forward to that. And I'm sure you'll have everyone running to, pick up equity in the company, at least from that perspective. So, this is a difficult time for the people of India. COVID's going crazy and, it's unfortunate. People are right now going through a lot of, mental issue, like mental trouble, physical trouble, financial trouble. So your advice, to the people of India and the people who listen into the podcast and watch the video, who are truly right now feeling smashed, bashed, and very not well hopeful. What is your advice, to this set of people?
I mean, that's all of us, right? We're all kind of like cooped in our homes with COVID. And I honestly, to be really candid here, I don't know what happens. If I know we're all talking about vaccination and inoculation will have antibodies for 6 months and so on and so forth. Is it really feasible for a country with as many people as India to inoculate the entire population every 6 months? Do we have the money to do that? Probably not. Uh, the reasonable assumption here would probably be that the virus in itself, at the end of the day, the virus does not gain if it kills the host, right? It has nothing else to do. So I'm guessing the only solution here is the virus organically somehow evolves to be less virulent and becomes a diminished version of itself. But I don't see any other solution for this. But I guess up until then, till our hospitals are overburdened, we lock down and we stay away until we have resources again. But I guess time is the only healer, and we'll have to live in a new modified world. We'll have to make our peace with it.
Yeah, time is the only healer. And again, I think one just has to be patient and I guess fight the demons and move forward. Concluding question. Where does Nikhil Kamath see himself in 5 years from now? And I know you're not big onto personal goals and all of that. So where do you see yourself 5 years down the line? What is going to be Nikhil at that time?
Well, healthy, hopefully, to begin with. I really like the concept of travel and learning in person from people versus reading about it online.
Mm-hmm.
So a personal aspiration for me is to take 6 months off or a year off at some point and go study about history or psychology. Okay. I'm hoping that happens somehow within the next 5 years, and I'm able to back off from many of the other things I do and take the time.
Awesome. I so love that. And yeah, even though you didn't have the education school, you're still always a learner. And I think that's a very, very vital point because sometimes people just stop investing in learning. So Nikhil, you're really an amazing person. It's good to finally meet you, well, even virtually for the time being. Hopefully one day we'll get to see each other in person at one of our summits as well. It has been a pleasure having you on this podcast. And I hope our listeners, enjoy listening to this one as much as we enjoyed recording it. Thank you. Take care and stay safe, Nikhil. It was an absolute pleasure.
Thank you, Gaurav. Thank you for having me.